Hey everybody, so I'm going to be starting in Exodus chapter 12, and this is the beginning that Passover is instituted from the Bible. I'm going to be reading from the King James Version. So the Lord said and spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, the first month of the year, this month shall be to you the beginning of the months, and it shall be the first month of the year to you. So God is instituting this particular day, the 10th day of this month. They shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house. And it should be according to the number of souls. The lamb should be without blemish, a male of the first year. And you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. So you bring a lamb into your home, you care for it, you love the lamb. And then on the 14th day of the same month, the congregation is going to come together that you are a part of, your community, and you are going to kill the lamb in the evening. You're going to take the blood, strike it on the two side posts and on the upper door posts of the house, and everybody inside of your home is going to eat the lamb, and they're going to eat the flesh into the night, and they're going to roast it with fire, and eat with unleavened bread without yeast and with bitter herbs. They're going to eat the lamb, the unleavened bread, and the bitter herbs. And in the morning, let nothing of it remain until the morning, and whatever's left over in the morning, you're going to burn it with fire. And you're eating it in haste, quickly, because whatever you're wearing, you've got your shoes on your feet and your staff in your hand, your loins girded. And the whole point about loins being girded, just so that we understand this in context, the men wore like a kind of toga dress skirt kind of thing. And when they were going to go into battle, they would tie up the bottom of their dress skirt thing and make it into like a short pant thing so that they could fight. So it's basically saying be on guard for fighting. And for I will pass through the land of Egypt this night and smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment, for I am the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the house where you are, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you. A plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. And this day shall be unto you a memorial, and you shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. You shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. How long is forever? Forever. That means that we are to still be following Exodus 12 and keeping this Passover. Okay, 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread. How many days does it say? 7. Even the first day you shall put the first day until the 7th day, or that soul will be cut off from Israel. And the first day there shall be a holy convocation, and the 7th day there shall be a holy convocation, meaning you're going to gather together on the first day and on the 7th day. No matter of work shall be done, and every man can only eat the unleavened bread. Observe the feast of unleavened bread. For I brought out your armies out of the land of Egypt, and you shall observe this day in your generations by an ordinance. How long? Forever. And so it goes on, and it says that, you're going to kill the Passover lamb. You're going to take a bunch of hyssop, which is like a branch with leaves on it. You're going to dip it in the blood of the lamb. You're going to put it on the two side posts, the doorway, and over the top of the door. So the top of the door and the two sides of the door. And none of you shall go out at the door of his house until the morning. Listen to this. None of you shall go out of the door of his house until the morning. How many of us are really practicing that to that level? Okay. A lot of people just go in and out, don't think anything of it. The Lord will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come into your houses to smite you. So, long story short, we keep going in chapter 12, and the firstborn males and the firstborn males of beasts and cattle are all strike dead, as the Lord had said. And so there is a great sadness across the land of Egypt. And it is because of this, and this was the last of the 10 plagues, the firstborn sons being killed, that finally, after 430 years, that Pharaoh finally releases the Israelite people, the Hebrew people, and he says, get out of here, because Moses kept saying, let my people go, and finally they are allowed to leave. The other thing that is an important point that many people may not know about, and that is, Joseph, who was the Pharaoh's second hand years before, and then that Joseph died and he was buried. When the Israelites, the Hebrew people, leave Egypt, they do carry Joseph's bones with them. And so they take, Joseph's bones with them on their trek across the wilderness. So I'm going to jump down, and so they're on their journey, and the Israelites are murmuring. Okay, so here we go. This is Exodus chapter 14, verse 10. And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. So even though Pharaoh says, you can go, and he releases the Israelites, then Pharaoh changes his mind when he sees that he made a bad decision and he wants to get all the slaves back. So he starts to chase after them. So when they see on the horizon that the Egyptians are still following after them, they are afraid, and they're crying out to the Lord. And they said to Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, have you taken us away to die in the wilderness? Wherefore hast thou dealt with us to carry us forth out of Egypt? Like, why are you bringing us out of Egypt if we're going to die in the desert anyway? So Moses said to his people, fear not, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show to you today. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, you shall see them again no more forever. Meaning, God is freeing them. This is a done deal. Stay and declare in your faith. Don't stay in the place of doubt just because you see that it looks like they're chasing after you. He's saying, keep your faith, keep moving forward. Don't look back, keep moving forward. And so jump down to verse 21. The Israelites pass through the Red Sea, and Moses stretches out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. So imagine this great body of water, like super tall, like miles tall, and the water just parts, and there's a left side and a right side, a west side and an east side, and all of these 600,000 Israelites are able to pass through the Red Sea with ease on foot, with all of their cattle and their gear, all the things that Pharaoh blessed them with, gold, silver, cattle, jewelry, etc., because of being slaves, and he blesses them. So here they are walking through the sea with all their gear, and the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. And the Egyptians in their chariots pursued after them and went in after them, and in the midst of the sea, even all the Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to pass, and that the Lord said to Moses, stretch out their hand over the sea, that the waters come again upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its strength when the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it, and the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. So the waters just flooded over top of all of the Egyptians and all their chariots and everything else, and the horses, and they were all killed. But the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. And the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. And Israel saw the great work which the Lord had done upon the Egyptians, and the people feared the Lord, and believed the Lord and his servant Moses. So the part that I really want to highlight about all this is that, number one, the Israelites, the Hebrew people, were slaves for 430 years under Egyptian rule. And they were not able to do their normal, just their normal way of living was they were living under slavery, period. So Moses went and appealed to Pharaoh and said, let my people go. And Pharaoh kept denying. And every time he denied, another plague came. So from the first plague all the way through the 10th plague, and the 10th plague being death to the firstborn sons and the firstborn cattle. And then all these people's relatives, husbands, children are all dead. All the Egyptians' children are dead, but none of the none of the Hebrew people, none of their children or family members were dead. It was a curse just on the Egyptians. And finally, Pharaoh lets them go. They continue out into the desert, 600,000 people on foot with cattle and belongings that Pharaoh had blessed them with for their journey. And as they get to the Red Sea, which they're kind of cornered after going through the mountains, and they're thinking everything's over, but Moses, through God, the Lord gives Moses and his staff the power to break and split the sea in half. And when the sea is split in half, they're able to walk through on that dry ground and make it from one side of the Red Sea to the other. And when the Pharaoh's army chases after them, and they're thinking they're going to be able to, capture the Israelites, the bottom line is the Lord makes all the water to fall over top of the Egyptian army, and everybody is killed. And again, there are archaeological evidence that have been found of this particular event that is historical and truth, and there have been chariot wheels and all kinds of other things that have been found in that area. So bottom line, the Egyptian people, they feared the Lord. They really saw that this was an impossible task, and they saw that the Lord carried them through. But even after the Lord carried them through, the Israelite people were impatient, and 3 days they were in the wilderness and they did not have any water. So they became, murmuring again, like, when we were in Egypt, we at least had water. We're going to die out here in the wilderness. Again, their whole doubt set in. And, Moses went to a specific spot in Marah, and he showed him a tree, and when he cast it into the waters were made sweet. And bottom line, Moses, through the Lord, provided water for the people. God then sends quails and manna, which was a form of bread-like substance, so that they could eat out in the desert. So every day God is instituting his reliance on him, and that on the 15th day of the second month, that's when their departing was out of Egypt, and he's instituting the Sabbath, where he's going to give you extra portion on this day, on the 6th day, but on the 7th day you're going to rest. And God is literally showing him, you are going to establish the Sabbath evening to evening, Friday evening to Saturday evening, sunset to sunset. And the Bible says, let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. So everybody was staying in their tent. However their camp was set up outside in the wilderness, they were staying in their tent, okay? And that's a key point that, again, many of us, we don't honor that. We go out with our cars and we drive around and we go here and there. But it says, don't leave your tent. Stay in your place. So just something to consider, to take our understanding to another level. And bottom line, Moses was in a position of power where he was, again, being a counselor to everyone. He was judging all the different bickerings that went among the people. But Jethro, Moses's father-in-law, through his wife Zipporah, Jethro suggests to Moses, hey, you need to organize these groups into thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens, so that each man who has the understanding of what the 10 Commandments are, that they're going to, judge over the people, and that they will help in the management of these problems. And again, this is before the 10 Commandments came, but again, they're preparing for all this. And so Moses takes Jethro's suggestion, and he sets up all these other men who were going to then manage the other groups of people in thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. And then when they reach Sinai, Mount Sinai, so we're now in chapter 19 and 20. Okay, so in chapter 20, that's when we are finally instituting the 10 Commandments. And so I am the Lord, God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. So out of slavery, God brought the Israelite people out of slavery. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. That's number 1. Thou shalt not make unto thee graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, there is the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. So again, what did he say? Keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath to keep the day holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all the work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates, within your land. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and mother, that the days may be long upon the land which the Lord has given you. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, maidservant, or his ox, or his ass, or anything else that is thy neighbor's. And they said unto Moses, and there's thunderings and lightnings and noise and the trumpet and the mountain smoking, and the people saw all this. They stood far off, and they said to Moses, Speak thou with us, and we will hear, but let God speak with us, lest we die. So they were so afraid of God and his power that they wanted Moses to be their intercessory, their in-between person. And Moses said unto the people, Fear not, for God is come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your faces, that ye sin not. So he's still reminding Moses still reminding the Israelite people, you can't sin. Follow these 10 commandments. If you follow these 10 commandments, you will be blessed and not cursed. So the whole point is God wants us all to succeed. He's saying don't sin. He's saying follow my commandments. And, do the Israelite people listen? No, they don't. And he goes on about the laws of theft and fornication in Exodus 22, and the laws about slander and false witness in Exodus 23. And he goes on about that in Exodus 24, Moses goes up to the mountain alone to be with God, and he's there for 40 days. And that is where the blood covenant is made, that the Lord is saying that we're going to be obedient. And so in 40 days and 40 nights, Moses is up on the mountain with God. And he says, he is talking about instituting the sacrifices and the offerings. And he starts talking about how they're going to build a place for the Ark of the Covenant. They're going to build a place where God will dwell on earth. And so the next chapters, specifically Exodus chapter 26, is about all of the curtains and all the supplies that are going to be needed to make the tabernacle itself, and the veil for the ark, and the altar, and all the vessels that are going to be on the table, and the whole structure and court, and the perimeters of where everybody's going to stand, and the oil for the lamp, and that Aaron and his sons are going to be part of the priesthood, and what they're going to wear with the breastplate, and the different stones that will be in the breastplate. So the whole point is God is instituting where he is going to reside on earth, within this tabernacle, within this structure. And even though they're moving across the desert, there will be a place that God presents himself, and everybody knows this is how it's going to be. So the point is, God has instituted specific things that we are to follow. And this is not just old school, ancient BS. This is the truth. And he says to follow it forever. How long is forever? Forever. That means still today. So, yes, there are some things that have changed, meaning that we all live independently. We're not all living in a tribe like we were then. And all of these things have, been the result of why we're not following God's way, and why we're all scattered. And many of us are scattered in our minds, our thoughts, our words, our deeds, everything, because we don't have that structure and order in place that God put there in place so that we can be receiving God's blessings. So when we're not following his order, then we are receiving his curses. And if you look at your life and you see that there are more curses than blessings, then you might want to get out of denial, get into the Bible, and start reading, start understanding, start having a personal relationship with God. And God's going to reveal himself to you through his word. And when you get that and you start to read it and starts to like download to you and you start to see yourself in a more humbled way, then it is in our submission and our admitting of our wrongs, of our sins, that God then comes closer to us to be in a personal relationship with us. And then we have the opportunity to, again, renew our covenant, renew our faith, renew our agreement to the 10 Commandments, renew our agreements to what he's already laid out in the Bible. And as we do that, we are brought into his protection and into God's blessings. And this time of the year of reading this portion really does tie this all together. And I'm going to go back to end on this note, which is Psalm 67. Okay. May God's face shine upon his people. God be merciful unto us and bless us and cause his face to shine upon us. Selah. That thy way, meaning the 10 Commandments, the way, meaning Jesus is the way, may be known upon earth, thy saving health among all nations. Let thy people praise thee. O God, let all thy people praise thee. O let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for thou shalt judge the people righteously and govern the nations upon the earth. Selah. Let the people praise thee, O God, let all the people praise thee. Then shall the earth yield her increase, and God, even our own God, shall bless us. God shall bless us, and all the ends of the earth shall fear him. So if you don't have a personal relationship with the God of Israel, and you don't understand some of the Old Testament information, which is important to tie into the New Testament understanding of who Jesus is and what he was fulfilling, and that Jesus literally is God's son, and that he perfectly carried out following these 10 commandments, you really need to see that Jesus is the perfect lamb sacrifice, and that the sacrifices that were set up within the Old Testament were to show the foreshadowing of the what was going to come next, which was Jesus. And now that we understand who Jesus is, and he died on the cross, he was buried, he descended into hell, he raised this other old saints, and he ascended into heaven and presented those first fruit offerings to the Father. And so we went from Passover to unleavened bread to first fruits, and those are the spring feasts that we are all commanded to keep those appointments, to keep those holy times with God. And if you're not doing that and you're not familiar with that, then this is just an opportunity for you to check it out, get more into the Bible, and start to practice these things. And anybody can do it. It's open invitation for anybody to come in. It's just a matter of, is your heart ready to be changed? And are you ready to do what's necessary to come into the agreement and the covenant with God and having a personal relationship with him? And I invite you to do the same. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of first fruits and Passover celebration, and that you are enjoying your family time and community time as well. Have a good one.